The heavy anti-gravity doors of the Sector 4 tactical arena didn't just slide open. They slammed against the wall, venting a thick plume of superheated steam, ozone, and cold sweat into the corridor. Inside, 300 elite cadets from across the Orion Arm sat in the rising tiers of the auditorium. At the center of the pit stood Instructor Kaelen, a 9-foot-tall, four-armed Krellian warlord whose natural biochitin armor was scarred from surviving 3 deep space planetary sieges. Behind him, a 3-dimensional combat ring flared to life, casting a harsh crimson glare across the silent room. Today's module, Kaelen's synthesized voice boomed, vibrating the metal frames under every seat, covers absolute kinetic dominance. In close-quarters combat, mass is not merely an asset, it is an unyielding mathematical law. Light worlders rely on speed. Heavy worlders rely on inertia. When the two collide, mass dictates survival. In the front row sat Turok, an 800-pound Gorgon noble whose biocalcified armor plates were thick enough to deflect small arms plasma fire. He was flexing his massive, 4-jointed claws, his yellow eyes sweeping the room with supreme, arrogant satisfaction. Turok was the top-ranked combatant in the academy, undefeated in 40 consecutive simulated duels. Beside him, sitting at a floating desk that groaned under the weight of her boots, was Maya. Maya was 19, human, and barely 5'6". She wore a faded gray Academy physical training tank top, scuffed combat boots, and had her dark hair pulled back in a tight knot. She was leaning back in her chair, casually wrapping black athletic tape around her knuckles, looking completely unimpressed by the glowing arena below. Turok let out a low, wet click through his mandibles, leaning his massive bulk over Maya's desk. "Tell me, little Deathworlder," Turok sneered, his voice carrying clearly through the silent hall. "Does your fragile, soft-skinned species actually train for hand-to-hand combat? Or do you simply pray that your enemy dies of old age while trying to locate a target small enough to hit?" A ripple of low chuckles echoed through the auditorium. 2 avian cadets in the second row fluttered their feathers in amusement, while a stone-skinned warrior from the outer rim clicked his joints together in agreement. Maya didn't jump. She didn't flinch. She finished wrapping her left wrist, bit the tape to snap it, smoothed it down with her thumb, and finally looked up into the 8-foot alien's yellow eyes. "We train," Maya said softly. Her voice wasn't raised, but it had a flat, cold stillness that made the laughter in the room die instantly. "We just don't waste breath boasting before the clock starts." Turok's yellow eyes narrowed into furious slits. He slammed a heavy, armored fist onto the edge of her desk, cracking the reinforced polymer. "An insult, Instructor Kaelen. I request an immediate honor duel in the open ring to demonstrate the complete futility of light-mass Deathworld biology." Instructor Kaelen paused, his 4 eyes flicking from the massive Gorgon down to the small human girl. "Cadet Maya, you are not obligated to accept a physical challenge above your weight class index. Imperial safety regulations permit a formal refusal." "I accept," Maya interrupted, standing up from her seat. She rolled her shoulders once, letting out 2 sharp, mechanical pops from her collarbones, and stepped straight over the desk barrier into the center of the crimson ring. The entire hall fell dead silent. Turok grinned, his heavy chitin plates clanking like iron doors as he stepped into the ring opposite her. He looked like an armored siege engine standing across from a breeze. The Academy's automated combat computer flared overhead, scanning both fighters and projecting their biological metrics in bright blue holograms above the pit. Turok, mass, 820 pounds. Density, class 4. Threat rating high. Maya, mass, 130 pounds. Density, class 12, Deathworld. Threat rating unknown. The rules are absolute. Instructor Kaelen roared, raising a gauntlet. First combatant to force the other out of the ring or achieve total submission wins. No lethal strikes. Combat, begin. Turok didn't hesitate. He let out a floor-shaking roar, lowered his massive, horned head, and lunged forward at full speed. His 800-pound frame moved like a runaway train, his 4 heavy claws outstretched to catch the small human and crush her straight through the reinforced floorboards. To 300 watching cadets, it looked like instant suicide. Maya didn't turn to run. She didn't attempt to jump backward. She didn't even blink. She waited until Turok was exactly 2 feet away, until the rush of displaced air blew the loose strands of hair across her face. Then, Maya dropped her center of gravity by 4 inches. Instead of retreating, she stepped into the charge. She didn't try to block 800 pounds of raw mass. She caught Turok's right wrist with her left hand, slammed her right palm directly under his massive, bio-armored elbow joint, and pivoted her feet on the slick steel floor. It was a classic leverage throw, a technique perfected on a high-gravity world where humans had spent 10,000 years learning how to redirect forces they couldn't overpower. Crack-thwack. The sound that echoed through the tactical hall wasn't the sound of a human bone snapping. It was the sound of an 800-pound Gorgon warlord being lifted completely off his feet, flipped upside down through the air, and slammed face-first into the steel deck plate with a force that shattered the holographic ring generator beneath them. The floor shuddered so violently that 3 floating desks in the front row dropped 2 inches from lost anti-gravity calibration. Turok lay dazed in the crater. His heavy chitin armor cracked open across his chest, his 4 mandibles twitching in pure, unadulterated shock. He frantically tried to scramble backward, his claws slipping uselessly on the smooth metal as he looked up in absolute terror. Maya didn't strike again. She was standing right over him, her left boot planted lightly on his cracked shoulder plate, her arms folded casually across her chest. She wasn't breathing hard. Her heart rate hadn't even crossed 100 beats per minute. In a low-gravity universe, Maya said, looking down at the defeated warlord with cold, ancient clarity. You think mass makes you strong because you've never had to fight a world that pulls down on your bones every single second of your life. On Earth, gravity fights us 24 hours a day. You were just 800 pounds of easy physics. The central combat computer flashed a blinding, diagnostic green overhead. Match concluded. Winner, Maya. Time elapsed. 1.8 seconds. Instructor Kaelen stood frozen at the podium, his 4 arms hanging uselessly at his sides, his optical sensors wide with reverent terror. Across the auditorium, 300 future fleet commanders slowly pulled their legs back, staring at the 5'6" girl in the faded training tank as if she were a walking orbital strike. Maya stepped off Turok's shoulder, turned toward her desk, and picked up her water bottle. Next time you want to test a Deathworlder, she called back over her shoulder, her boots thudding softly against the cracked steel floor. Bring someone who actually knows how to use their weight. The heavy steel doors hissed shut behind her, leaving 300 elite cadets sitting in complete, terrifying silence, staring at the shattered crater in the center of the room.